Guys, today we are dealing with some hot stuff. A 4K 160Hz monitor at an incredibly attractive price point of $340 to $390 depending on where and when you purchase and what kind of discount codes you end up making use of. This is the KTC H27P22S, a super fast and color accurate 27-inch monitor that's not only suitable for gaming but also for getting work and content creation done. The overall feature set within this price point is simply phenomenal, I can tell you right off the bat. Even at the price mentioned, the H27P22S by the KTC brand is hardly inferior to the many much more expensive brand monitors out there, even in terms of power efficiency. However, there are a few minor things that need to be mentioned. I think you should be made aware of those before buying. The scope of delivery is very complete, meaning we get the screen itself, the base and stand, power cord and power supply, a DisplayPort cable, and some paper documentation. Assembling the monitor couldn't be any easier. You simply put together and screw base and stand into place without the need of any tools, and then let the assembled stand click into place with the actual screen. Of course, today's KTC monitor has the usual ergonomic features, such as 130mm height adjustment, a 45-degree swivel, tilting of 5 and 20 degrees, and of course the 90-degree pivot functionality to put the monitor either in portrait or landscape mode, for instance. By tapping the screen briefly, there's only minimal wobble and it stabilizes very soon after. Spec-wise, we are talking of the 4K UHD resolution at an aspect ratio of 16:9. The screen is of the classic type, meaning it does not come with any curve. At the heart of the monitor is an IPS panel with a specified color gamut coverage of 132% as far as sRGB is concerned and 92% for DCI-P3. In terms of color depth, we're looking at 8-bit plus FRC. The highlights for the gamers among you are undoubtedly the high refresh rate of 160Hz, as well as the response time of just 1 millisecond. The H27P22S offers the perfect number of ports of each type, namely 2 DisplayPort 1.4 and 2 HDMI 2.1. However, there's also a USB port on board, even though it's only intended for upgrades and service. And then there's a 3.5mm headphone output. This monitor does not offer any USB hub functionality whatsoever, and neither are any speakers built in. And I think that's a good thing within this price range, because that way we get as much monitor as possible for the money. When of course we are talking of the 100 by 100mm VESA mounting standard if you wish to attach the screen to the wall or to any third-party monitor arms. We are looking at HDR 400 here. Thus, we are dealing with a maximum brightness of 400 candela or nits, which should be considered the minimum standard these days. The KTC monitor features a physical joystick to get to and around the OSD menu. The menu offers us all kinds of customization options and profiles to switch to. We get just as many options here as with those really expensive monitors, including 4 overdrive levels. The H27P22S also happens to offer compatibility with FreeSync and G-Sync. I believe the aesthetics of the monitor are great. The looks are kept rather simple and minimalistic, yet one spots right away this is not supposed to be a good old office screen, but a gaming monitor. The frame and bezels are pretty slim. But what do I think about the screen quality? There are no unpleasant uniformity issues visible to my naked eye. The brightness seems to be evenly distributed. I also did not notice any distracting, awful color tints. The color reproduction appears to be decent and to me is at a high level. Even the gradients with all those individual colors are nice and clean. So the color accuracy therefore is completely sufficient even for many content creators like me. Professionals would of course choose to recalibrate the screen. Needless to say, I cannot provide any scientific results on the actual color reproduction, as I don't have any professional measuring devices for that. The viewing angles are typically good for an IPS panel, even if that means we get to see the well-known IPS glow that simply is part of that. The refresh rate of 160Hz is awesome. This also noticeably reduces the input lag. For gaming, that's outstanding, so good. But even for everyday tasks, the responsiveness sure is very welcome. In order to fully enjoy and make use of a monitor with such a spec sheet, you obviously do need pretty expensive hardware, especially as far as your graphics card is concerned. It can be pricey to decently drive such a monitor properly. Although, even if you're gaming at only a measly 60 FPS and not at 140 or 160 FPS, gaming is still a pleasure if you ask me, just because of the extremely low input lag that kinda comes along with that refresh rate. Anyone who got the pleasure of trying out a monitor like this can no longer go back to 60Hz. Now, I also do have some negative things to say here regarding quality control or poor storage of the monitor, because there are a few small annoying spots to be found, about 2 or 3 on my particular monitor. These aren't dead or damaged pixels, but rather tiny dust or mold particles in between the panel and the outer protective shell, probably caused by suboptimal damp storage of the monitor. For most people, it's hardly worth mentioning, but for the slightly obsessive-compulsive Nicholas right here, well, it's a bit irritating. However, not every screen of this model automatically has to be affected by this, mind you. It may be an exception, but this is where the negativity towards the H27P22S comes to an end, because the rest is nothing short of amazing. I even went through the extra work and measured the monitor's power consumption at 5 different brightness levels at 60, 120, 144, and finally at a refresh rate of 160Hz. Excellent results come to light. There's also no real valid reason to set the refresh rate to anything below 160Hz, only to save a tiny bit of power. Conclusion. I'm being honest with you, I own a fairly expensive LG 4K UHD monitor that is exactly as bright, appears to be offering comparable color accuracy, consumes a little more power, and runs at 144Hz. Then today's KTC H27P22S monitor kicks the door in and delivers fully comparable image quality for the vast majority of users at a fraction of the price, and is even a little faster at 160Hz. I'm obviously going out on a limb with this claim, but I still maintain that this is one of the best 4K UHD monitors with a 160Hz refresh rate money can buy within this price range. The performance is very impressive, but of course, some compromises had to be made. For instance, neither is there any USB hub functionality, nor are there any built-in speakers. These are features only very few people tend to realistically use anyway. At a price of $340 to $390, there are only few competitors that can convey such a premium brand feeling. Therefore, without the slightest doubt, I can totally recommend the KTC H27P22S monitor. What are your thoughts on the KTC monitor I reviewed today? Do you like the combination of 4K and 160Hz, or would the hardware requirements for the graphics card be too much to handle for you? Now, if you enjoyed the video, I'd as always very much appreciate a like, and if not, just hit the dislike button. With that in mind, thank you all so much for watching, and until the next one.